We should avoid stereotyping and generalizations in this debate. But more importantly, I want to put a human face on these facts and statistics. So I'm going to share two stories of individuals who came in contact with our office. These two, I think, are representative of literally millions of people. We hear the numbers, but when we listen to the stories and look at the faces of the people involved, we know that we have to act. So the first is about Yves Gerald Gomes, age 20 years of age, who was originally from India. And I'm going to quote, "My own story started in 1994 when I came to this country in the arms of my parents. I was only a year and a half. My parents came from India and Bangladesh, hoping to provide me with opportunities, something they didn't have growing up in poverty in their homes. My earliest memory in life are growing up in Maryland in the basement of my great-aunt and great-uncle's house and learning English from their children, my older cousins, by watching Fresh Prince of Bel-Air and Full House soon. After 1995, my brother was born. My parents had an ongoing asylum case, which was denied in 2006. But over the 12-year span, my father worked hard as a hotel server in order to help my mother pay for her college education and for us to live comfortably. Growing up, I felt as though I was just like any other middle-class American peer from school. But in 2006, we became undocumented. Our work permits could no longer be renewed, so my father was forced to quit his job at the hotel. And my mother had to resign her tenure as a college professor and surrender her PhD studies in computer science. In 2008, our home was raided by ICE, a few days after my dad was pulled over one night from driving with a busted taillight in Baltimore. Ultimately, both of my parents were deported in 2009. I faced my own deportation in 2010, but was able to remain in the United States because of the hard work of my lawyer, the support of my friends, church community, and the media. It will be 5 years since my brother and I last saw our parents. Currently, my brother and I live with the same great-aunt, great-uncle, and cousins who we resided with when my family first came to the United States. It was disheartening when my parents missed my own high school graduation, and it will be disheartening when they miss my younger brother's high school graduation. Moreover, the pain of separation resonates to our extended family, too. My mother treated my great-aunt and great-uncle, naturalized U.S. citizens for 40-plus years, like her own parents, and she could not be here to take care of them in their old age. Their son, my cousin, a U.S. citizen, has degenerative muscle disease, which prevents him from traveling. If immigration reform does not happen, it's possible he will never get to see my father, who he treats like his older brother, ever again. I will graduate from the University of Maryland College Park in 3 semesters with my undergraduate degree in biochemistry. I really hope that my parents will be here to see me walk across the stage. For myself and millions of others, immigration reform means a pathway to pursue our dreams and give back to the American society, our home, personally. I want to enter into the field of medical research or pharmacy. Moreover, for myself and so many others, immigration reform means the hope of being reunited with family members. It also means no longer having to wake up every morning with the constant fear of deportation. I've lived in the United States since I was a year old. This is the only country I've ever known as my home. Despite all the challenges my family has faced, I still love the United States. And I've always considered myself to be an American at heart. I hope that after this year, I can be an American on paper, too. Let me just tell one more story. Mr. President, I could read from other letters that we've received. I'm sure the President has the same situation. We've all heard from people in our community. Let me talk about Raymond, who was originally from the Philippines. And I quote again, "My family and I came to the United States in hopes and dreams of a better life. We left everything behind in the Philippines to pursue the American dream. At the age of 9, assimilating to the American culture was not difficult. Naturally, I felt as though I was just like everyone else, or so I thought. The harsh reality of being undocumented hit me in my senior year of high school, when I came home from an invitational track meet where I was scouted and offered scholarships. I was so excited to tell my parents the great news. To this day, I still remember the proud look on my father's face. My mother, on the other hand, suddenly broke down in tears. I was confused as to why she was asking forgiveness. She began to explain that we were undocumented, and due to my immigration status, I would not be able to accept the scholarships. Finally, hitting the wall made me realize that all my hard work would amount to nothing. For as long as I could remember, my family has constantly faced financial struggles, but somehow we always found a way to make ends meet. My father, who was once a successful businessman, was forced to work odd jobs, such as landscaping, delivering, driving a cab. My mother, who was a nurse practitioner, worked multiple jobs for cleaning houses, babysitting, and taking care of the elderly. My sister, who was only 2 years older than me, made the sacrifice of not going to college so I would be able to. She worked any job that came along. They all worked day in and day out to make sure that food on the table, clothes on my back, and a roof over our heads. I know that if my parents were able to work legally in the United States in business and nursing, we would not struggle as much, and we would be able to contribute much more to the U.S. economy. Yet because of our current broken immigration system, our hard work does not pay dividends. In 2011, I became involved in the campaign for Maryland Dream Act, which involved grassroots organizing. At this point, I realized that no longer would I stay silent in the shadows. I had to let my voice be heard and take a stand against this injustice that my community and I face. Throughout the campaign, I realized, even as a youth, you can still bring forth change, which is why to this day I continue to fight for my family and all 11 million undocumented immigrants in the United States. In this year's push for comprehensive immigration reform, no one will be left behind. We must stand united and battle this oppression. In the words of Martin Luther King Jr., injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Again, Mr. President, I could bring up many other stories, put faces on these numbers, because I think we need to do that. This immigration bill is for the two persons who I just talked about, their families, and for the 11 million. It's for this nation. There is bipartisan agreement that our nation's immigration and border system is broken and must be fixed. We must ensure that our borders are secure and that we know who is coming and going from the nation. At the same time, we must find a tough but fair process that allows the estimated 11 million undocumented immigrants in the United States to come out of the shadows and set reasonable requirements if they want to stay in this country. This legislation creates a fair path to citizenship for undocumented immigrants currently living in the United States. This path to citizenship must be earned and would require individuals to register with the government, submit biometric data, learn English, pass criminal background and national security checks, pay taxes and penalties before they would be eligible for a provisional legal status. This pathway to citizenship requires individuals to earn their status over a period no fewer than 10 years. In addition, the legislation addresses the need for improved border security and requires a 90% effectiveness rate for apprehension and return in high-risk border sections before individuals in provisional legal status can adjust to permanent residence. It also creates an effective employment verification system using the E-Verify system that will prevent identity theft and the hiring of unauthorized workers and help stop future waves of illegal immigration. And finally, this legislation establishes an improved process for future legal immigration that is responsive to the needs of American businesses and supports reunification of families. Despite fears that immigrants will take jobs from Americans, numerous studies show that immigrants and U.S.-born workers generally do not compete for the same jobs. In fact, in 2009, a study by the Cato Institute, a conservative think tank, found that immigrants have a positive effect on the workforce. The business sector strongly supports comprehensive immigration reform. That's because our economy is in need of highly skilled workers that can help stimulate growth and keep our nation in the forefront of innovation and invention. From 1990 to 2005, foreign-born nationals founded more than 25% of the technology startups in the United States. Immigrant reform is about keeping families together and ensuring that immigration laws are respected. I want to commend my colleagues from both parties for coming together and crafting a bipartisan bill that creates a workable framework for comprehensive reform. Now the Senate needs to move forward in passing legislation that is both comprehensive and fair. This legislation enjoys broad support from a diverse coalition of labor, business, civil rights, and religious groups. Polls indicate broad support across party lines for comprehensive immigration reform, with most Americans agreeing that immigration is a net positive for the United States. Most Americans want Congress to take action to fix our broken immigration system. While this legislation is not perfect, it's not what I would have drafted, I believe it is a strong step forward and a vast improvement over our current laws. And I urge my colleagues to support the balanced approach to immigration reform. Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution provides that the Congress shall have the power to establish a uniform rule of naturalization. Congress last enacted a major overhaul in immigration policy in 1986 during President Reagan's administration over a quarter century ago. The time is now for Congress to act.